Have you ever had one of those moments where something tiny just sets you off? A sudden jolt of anxiety that feels way too big for the situation? Well, you are definitely not alone. Today, we're going to get into the science of why those little, subtle shifts in the world around you can feel so huge. Let's figure out what's really going on inside.
I mean, really think about it for a second. You're talking to someone, everything seems totally fine, and then, boom, there's this tiny, almost unnoticeable change in their voice, and suddenly your internal alarm bells are just screaming. How does that even happen?
You know the feeling. It's that one little thing that can completely derail your day. Just imagine, you pick up on a subtle shift in how someone's speaking to you.
Or maybe it's in a text message, right? The usual friendly emoji is suddenly gone, and it's replaced with a period, a simple dot. And all of a sudden, your mind is just spinning, coming up with a million worst-case scenarios. It feels like a real threat, even when your logical brain is saying it's probably nothing.
So here's the most important thing to get from all of this. You are not too sensitive. You're not overreacting. What you likely have is a highly attuned nervous system. And this isn't some kind of flaw. It's actually a biological feature that has learned to scan for danger to keep you safe.
So what is actually going on up there in your brain during those moments? Let's break down the science because there's a really good reason for these powerful automatic reactions.
Okay, so a hyper-attuned nervous system is basically a survival adaptation. Your brain has trained itself to be this incredible detective, constantly on the lookout, picking up on the tiniest social and sensory cues as potential clues about your safety. It's really just a protective mechanism that's working in overdrive.
And the part of your brain that's running this whole operation? It's the amygdala. Think of it as your brain's super-fast automatic threat sensor. When it spots a trigger, like that weird tone of voice or that text with a period, it doesn't hang around to ask questions. It immediately flags it as a possible danger and bam, floods your body with stress hormones, getting you ready for fight or flight. And here's the really wild part, the speed. This entire threat detection process happens in less than a single second. That's way faster than your conscious, rational brain can even catch up. And that's exactly why you can't just logic your way out of it in the moment. Your body is already reacting before you've even had a chance to think it through. And, this response can get even more intense. When you're already dealing with a lot of stress or you're feeling burned out, your internal bandwidth, so to speak, is really low. In that state, your brain just doubles down on what it thinks is most important, keeping you safe. This makes it even more hyper-aware, flagging pretty much anything that feels even slightly unfamiliar or off.
Now, this hyper-attunement, it doesn't just show up in one way. It often appears in two pretty distinct categories: our sensitivity to sounds and our sensitivity to social cues.
So this sensitivity kind of has two common faces. On one side, you've got sensory triggers. You might have heard of this as misophonia, where everyday sounds like someone chewing or tapping are perceived by the brain as actual threats. And on the other side, you've got social triggers, which are linked to a response called fawning, where you're just intensely focused on other people's emotional shifts to try and avoid any conflict.
Right, so to be super clear, misophonia is not a problem with your hearing. It's a difference in how your brain processes sound. And fawning, that's not just being nice. It's a deep-seated survival response where you're doing all the emotional work to manage everyone else's feelings just to keep things from escalating.
Okay, so we get the what and the why now. So let's get to the most important part. What can we actually do about it? Let's talk about some real practical tools you can use to help calm your nervous system when it goes on high alert.
It really boils down to a three-step process. First, just recognize what's happening in your body and try to do it without judging yourself for it. Second, start to notice what your specific triggers are. What sounds, what situations, what kinds of social cues tend to set you off. And third, you have to actively create a sense of safety for yourself and your nervous system.
So whether you use background noise to soften triggering sounds, or you practice grounding techniques to reset your body, or you just learn to communicate your needs to a friend, please remember this. These are not excuses. They aren't signs of weakness. They are legitimate, powerful tools for survival in a world that can feel pretty overwhelming.
So as we start to wrap this up, I want to offer one final way to look at all of this. It's about learning to see this part of yourself, not with frustration, but with some real compassion.
If you have spent your whole life feeling like you just had to pretend to be fine, please be gentle with yourself. That hyper-aware, easily triggered version of you was never broken. That part of you was just trying to survive, using the only tools it knew how to. And that leaves us with one final question to think about. What if this incredible attunement to the world, your sensitivity, isn't a weakness at all? What if, when you really understand it and learn how to work with it, it's actually your greatest strength?